Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back for day 2. If you were here yesterday, you're going to hear the same thing again from me, maybe 2 more times. So you can compare all 4 versions. But if you were not here yesterday, let me begin for everyone in wishing you a good afternoon. Again, my name is Chris Bragg. I serve as the Associate Dean of Institutional Effectiveness here at the College of Southern Idaho, and I would like to welcome you to the 3rd of 4 forums that we are having to aid in the selection of the next president of the College of Southern Idaho. Once again, before we begin, we want to ensure that everyone in the audience has received a comment card on the way in this morning or this afternoon. If you do not have a comment card, if you raise your hand, somebody can bring you a comment card. Make sure that you've got one. We will collect these comment cards at the end of the forum, so please make sure that you get one. These forums are the next step in what has been a long and thorough process to identify and select the next president of the College of Southern Idaho. The CSI Board of Trustees contracted with the Association of Community College Trustees to conduct a national search, and activities have been underway for more than 5 months. College employees were invited to participate in the development of the search announcement. A 16-member search committee comprised of campus and community members was appointed and charged with reviewing the applicants and the applications and identifying a group of candidates to forward to the Board of Trustees for further consideration as finalists. At these forums, you will have the opportunity to meet the finalists to provide your own written comments, which will be reviewed by the CSI Board of Trustees as they consider each finalist's qualifications and determine who would best lead the college forward. Once again, we want to thank you for your vital participation in this process. The format of the forum today will be as follows. The candidate will be invited out to make an opening statement. After that opening statement, he will take some questions from the audience. As with yesterday, we've got a couple of people running microphones back and forth. Please make sure that you have that microphone in front of you before you ask a question. And please also give our candidate the benefit of introducing yourself and your connection to the institution, whether you're a student, administrator, staff, faculty, community member. The forum will last for 50 minutes. When there's approximately 10 minutes left, we'll take one final question, and then the candidate will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. With that, I would like to introduce our candidate for this forum, Dr. Josh Baker. Dr. Baker currently serves as the Vice President of Instruction at Pikes Peak Community College in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Josh Baker.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Am I live here? All right, great. So I want to start by actually introducing my wife, who's right there. Tony Baker. We've been married for about 20 years, and the best thing that's ever happened to me by far, and I'm grateful to have her support. Been tremendously helpful. I'd love to tell you more about her and our process to leading here. What I would like to briefly introduce is my background, professional, and what has prepared me for this role, but I will be brief as I think that many of those examples will come up over the next hour. So I started as a full-time faculty member at Highline Community College near Seattle. Highline identifies as the most diverse college in the state with a strong immigrant population. I benefited tremendously by that experience. I was there for about 7 years as a faculty member and also doing a variety of faculty leadership roles. My next stop was Vincennes University in Indiana, where I was assistant dean of early college. And early college there is a little different. That actually means I was 3 hours from campus, managing my own little almost program / campus of about 600 to 700 students. Great students, great exposure to our dual credit and what that looks like. I was then recruited to Bates Technical College, and they said, can you come work for us for just 2 to 3 years? We need help fixing some things up, and then we'll help you get onto your vice president role. So I was an academic dean and campus dean at Bates Technical College and had lead over several areas to include adult basic ed, gen ed, business and office, medical, and more. And finally, currently, as mentioned, I'm at Pikes Peak. Pikes Peak is a tremendous college, a high-performing college. We have approximately 20,000 students, about 10,000 FTE. Great place to work and a great culture with great teams. I'm really proud of what we do there. So I have this 5-minute intro. I wanted to talk to you about what I believe community college leadership should look like and what it is for me. I'll start by telling you about a football coach who was at a Division III school in Tacoma. I hesitate using sports analogies with academics, but I'm just going to go there. He had this great motto that I love, and it was, make the big time where you are. And I've always identified with that. Make the big time where you are. We're never going to be Yale. We're never going to be Harvard. But to you, to me, to our students, to our community, that's exactly what we are. In fact, we're more because we provide services to our community that they don't. And I think that's a shared value to me that is significant, is that we know that to this area, not even this city, to this region, that we provide invaluable services. And that this is a place that our students will remember fondly. And I value that commitment. Now, for me, there's an important philosophy behind this. Well, how does that happen? How do you create a culture that innovates and changes and thinks about, what are they doing over there in that region or that state, and how can I bring that here? And my philosophy of change and innovation is based on having an organization of leaders. It's important that the innovation doesn't come exclusively from myself or vice presidents or deans. Those are good sources. But you and I both know, I've been in the role, the best ideas come from people who are providing the service. They're identifying the challenges and opportunities, and they can help elevate these ideas of, what student really needs? This is the service they really need. And then we can find ways to support that and fund that. Which means, of course, that we have to have avenues by which ideas can be presented and forwarded. And just as a final wrapping up thought is my introduction, I didn't mention in my history, so at Highline I decided after a few years, I really loved what happens behind the scenes that opens doors for students. And so I knew that I had to get a PhD. I went to Oregon State University, and thank you. And I was in their community college leadership program. Very, very focused. I loved it. I loved the very focused discussion in the hot topics, and it was a fantastic program. I researched actions of community college presidents that increased organizational trust. Now, this doesn't mean, how do I make you trust me? That seems very self-serving. But how do you all trust each other? What do I do that creates a culture where the students trust the coaches and teachers trust each other, the custodial staff and the teachers trust each other, right? So it's just a culture of innovation, communication, and we can all work together. And there were 7 findings from this. I'll just share 4 of them. Of course, the top 2, you could guess if you've been in higher ed, shared governance and communication. Right? We all know that. Now, what was underneath that as far as the details of how that works was very informative. In those interviews, they still ring in my ear. It just, sometimes I'm in a meeting, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can hear Kathy Oberg right now telling me how to do this. The last 2 were not surprising, but I had not anticipated. One was professional development, essentially a commitment to excellence. Because if we're going to trust each other, we have to know that we are competent in our job. And not only that, but we're great at our job. So we have to really commit to professional development. And hopefully that means if we can afford it, not just here in the college, but we're sending people to go visit a college and walk away with their best ideas or conferences or whatever opportunity there might be to really develop ourselves and grow. The last point was interaction. This is really probably common sense. I did not anticipate it. And basically, are we ever sitting down together, and I don't mean you and me, but us, with no agenda, just talking? And do we know what each other's kids are doing, or what project you're doing, or where you're going hiking? When those relationships start to develop, it creates natural relationships that when there is strain, hey, that's okay. I've met you before, let's talk, we can fix this. 1 minute later, issue's resolved. Or if we want to innovate, well, I know so-and-so in the research office, they can pull that data for me, right? So we just have this relationship that's very supportive. So there was my 5-minute intro. I wanted you to have an insight as far as what speaks to me in leadership and what I think an effective president, and for that matter, any leader would do on campus. And I open it up for questions.
Hi, my name is Scott Lindquist. I'm the coordinator of our Student Disability Services office here at CSI. And my question is the following. Currently, about half of CSI's enrollment is dual credit early college students. Can you tell us a little bit more about your early college experience you referenced earlier? And also, what is your overall view of these programs?
Thank you. This is one of the biggest changing dynamics. Your data actually looks somewhat similar to ours in that we are seeing a decline of on-campus students and an increase that will continue to increase in the high schools. There's obviously great benefits. I've been in that dynamic. I've been in the high schools. I have visited with those teachers, and literally my office was there. What I did love is that so many of them were committed to quality. And I think that sometimes as teachers, it might be easy to overlook that, but I know so many of them, and we're not perfect, who really want to do good work. And with our support, will do good work. It's clear that this will continue. If we don't provide that service, someone else will. It is true across the country that these students do not matriculate to our campus in high percentages. That does not mean, though, that this is not the right service to offer. We are reaching in, helping people, and sometimes they even take a break of 2, 3, or 5 years, but knowing that they can come back with 15, 20, 30 credits under their belt, they are closer to graduation, which helps them as adult students. This is a very difficult dynamic to navigate. I certainly don't know what the solutions are here yet, but how do we manage this perhaps a continual dwindling of enrollment on campus, and the reality isn't a good economy. It's probably going to continue that way until we have a blip. So the quality is important, and that's all the teacher interaction and observations. And then as far as the finances of it, I mean, that's a really difficult challenge. You have a good financial model. Denver area is in real trouble. I'll save the details for another day, but that's the really critical piece there. Just a quick mention of mine also at Pikes Peak. We have a combination of a very strong CTE programming on our campus for high schools. Some of them are in specific cohorts. We also offer in the high school gen eds, and we offer at the college gen eds. And that's approximately 20% right now.
Ancina Durham, CSI Library. What, in your view, are the 3 most important responsibilities of the president?
Number 1 is the home team. It's our campus. This is the reason we exist is to teach and to progress towards graduation and employment and or transfer. So leading this internal team is priority number 1. Now, it's not my job to get into a lot of the weeds, and I need to stay out of that. I need to let people do their jobs. But I certainly, though, I have to lead that team, and I have to work those dynamics and work with the cabinet to progress those plans. And I want to accompany that with providing a process by which we plan. Strategic plans are great. You have a good strategic plan. You have great data with that strategic plan. And what comes behind that is actually the most critical. What are you doing every summer in planning to revisit that strategic plan? We use focus goals every year to identify what the next step is. So there's number 1. Number 2, still working on number 3. Number 2, I'm going to go with the external piece. And this is our foundation work. This is our industry partners, economic development. One of the reasons I love the presidential role, and I identified that early in my career, is really being a very unique situation. We help grow the economy, and we're talking with potential businesses moving in about why this is the right place and how we can train to their needs. As well as this also includes on the external part, everything we do with legislators, both in funding and influencing legislation that's passed. Number 3, I will go with the board. Number 2 is a big category. I almost attempted to break that up. The board's important, and I know that there's been a great relationship here with the board. The board's done really good work, and I know that your president has led that and facilitated that, and that is a real treat. And if you're not familiar with other colleges and some of their dynamics, you may not appreciate how absolutely fantastic that is. And so I actually want to highlight that, that's one of my key roles, is to have a very productive relationship with the board. And my goal is that you actually never even think about that. If I'm doing my job, you won't talk or think about the board quite a bit because you'll be doing your daily work, etc. So that's what I identify as probably the 3 biggest keys, the 3 biggest roles: internal, external, and board. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scott Farkas. I'm the chair of Visual and Performing Arts here.
Hi, Scott.
So CSI serves a lot of community roles. Among them are arts education and outreach through music, dance, theater, etc. Kind of constitute a cultural hub for the region. I was hoping you could talk for a few minutes about the value you see in our cultural community mission, how that might play into your work here, and how you would support ongoing strength in the arts at CSI.
Yeah, this is a great question and a great challenge, although I don't know it's much of a challenge for you. So there are many community colleges across the country that embrace some form of this philosophy, and they're just not doing it very well. And a part of me is looking at what you have done and are doing, and I'm thinking, okay, I just need to come in there and not mess it up. You have really done great work, and we looked yesterday at the community ed offerings and looking at what's options are out there for youth and seniors, and it's just fantastic work. And so you all are doing it, and this is a bit of my leadership philosophy. And sometimes, to be honest, sometimes the role is, I'm not gonna mess it up, right? I'm gonna facilitate people who are leading to continue to lead. And you don't need me to come in with a philosophy about how to do this outreach, because you are really doing well. What I do need to do is I need to be present. I need to be out with those community partners and making sure that they understand that we are very, very committed to this. Visiting your centers yesterday, I missed one, but I visited your centers. It gave me a much better sense of what this community is and the services that you provide. This is so much more than we offer classes so you can go get a degree and move on. You are supporting a community as a hub much more than 99.9% of the community colleges out there. And that really is a priority coming in, is how do I make sure that you all feel supported and are getting the resources and support you need so we can continue to support that growth. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Bicker. I'm Justin Vipperman. I'm a grant writer here, also adjunct instructor. I'm wondering if you can explain to me what shared governance means to you more broadly, but then also how do adjunct faculty fit into that model?
Shared governance is a topic I love, and it is an incredibly complicated topic. And I actually asked some people this today, what does shared governance look like on your campus? After thinking about this for several years, I feel like there are campuses that have a structure of shared governance, which is good. A structure helps. But if you don't have also the commitment from the top, it really doesn't matter what you have in structure. So a shared governance, for me, most importantly, is a commitment from administrators that values what the team is saying, the larger team of faculty and staff, and using whatever structure you have in place or could be in place to seek input, to gather ideas, and as organizations to make recommendations that can move through the cabinet or others to rise to the top. Now, of course, if you have both of those, that's what you're really after. I will share that both of my last colleges have said, both of them had some kind of structure of shared governance. They both said, Josh, we're not really used to a vice president or dean who listens to us. We're not exactly sure what to do with that. And I love the compliment, but it took us, kind of a year or two for them to understand, hey, I am really listening. And when you make a recommendation, I am going to try and implement that unless there's a reason not to. And if there's a reason not to, we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to let you know, here's my concerns about this recommendation you made and why I'm skeptical. It doesn't mean that it's a dead idea. It means that I need your help addressing this concern, whether it's financial sustainability or otherwise, strategy, what have you. So coming into here, what I would be looking for, I actually believe that you're having a conversation about what the structure looks like. My commitment to you is that we'll be listening. And we will be wanting to hear input. And sometimes I have to go sit down in people's office and say, tell me what you think about this. What concerns do you have? I want to hear it. Bring it out. This is not just an activity. I'm not just here to create buy-in. I need to hear it from you. What do you think of this idea? And it's okay to tell me I'm wrong. And so that's what it looks like to me as number one is a commitment. And when you talk about we're developing a shared governance structure, well, good. I want you to develop a shared governance structure, and I hope that comes from you. At my college, it looks like a Senate, and it looks like a curriculum committee, and a few other smaller committees. To be honest, our structure is not very strong, but our commitment to it is. Great question. Important topic.
Hi, I'm Matt Reynolds, faculty and also a member of the Sustainability Council. So how have you been active in implementing sustainability practices on campuses, and what priority do you feel you'd give at CSI?
I was actually thinking about that earlier today. Good topic. Sustainability is important to me. I'm a backpacker, a leave no trace. I don't even want to start a fire out there because I don't want to disrupt what's going on there. I don't have an amazing background. I could tell you of the 5 things I did that changed sustainability at campus. But it's something I believe in, and it's something that I hope, again, through shared governance models will rise. Obviously, we do recycling and those types of things. We have a group that's presenting ideas to us at Pikes Peak around sustainable gardening practices and ideas. So unfortunately, I can communicate an interest and a commitment. My track record is not quite there of showing you all the things I've done. And I'd be really interested to hear your ideas about what we could do to increase sustainability on campus, which is clearly a big part of our future. I was talking to somebody today and they said, what does the future look like? And they said, well, it depends on water, right? And do we have the water to support a growing population here? So I wish I could tell you some really specific things, but definitely support that direction.
Jacob Powell, Assistant Athletic Director. What role will athletics play under your administration?
Great question. So I started actually as a teacher and coach. And I kind of like to tell the story, I kind of don't. So I went to Highline Community College as a teacher and secondly as a coach. And I helped out our men's basketball program, and we were off to a really good start. I had some basketball experts, and I was kind of the Jill of how do we get these guys to figure this out? And how do we keep the team together through a long season? We won the championship our first year. Second year, we won the division championship. And then we were invited to come play here. That was a very good year for CSI basketball. Boy, I still, walking into the gym today, it was just relieving to not be on the other side. Anyways, it was a tough game. We lost by a lot. I think we beat Sheridan the night before, but that's a different day. So athletics plays a very important role in the college. And one of the things I asked today is, how is the balance? Are teachers actually feeling supported by coaches? And hopefully vice versa, but the real important is the academics emphasized. And so I appreciated hearing that athletes are graduating with high rates, et cetera. For me, athletics is a retention, it's a recruitment tool, and it is a way for us to fully engage with our community. At another college, I would have to sell that more, but I've been here, I know how many people come to a game. And it's a phenomenal thing, so I'm a big fan. I will tell you one story. I think back to the young men that I coached, and they were from all walks of life. And I think of Mo Anderson. Came in with no father figure, came in with a pregnant girlfriend, and no academic success. Our coach was a Juris Doctorate, African-American gentleman from a similar background. similar, and a wonderful gentleman. Morris Anderson today works with scores of youth like himself as a coach. And I don't believe he would have got there if it were not for that support, that opportunity at community college. Send him off straight away to Division I, we wouldn't be talking about Morris Anderson. So there is tremendous value to those athletes, to those individuals, and also to the college and community as a whole.
Hi, I'm Vicki Stone, and I'm a member of the Boosters Club for CSI. And I think you kind of answered my question, but as you know, CSI has an amazing athletic department. And do you feel obligated to go to those games?
And I might even address this from a broader topic. I have a really great president, and I may reference him more than I should, but he's been a great role model. We have a similar philosophy around how a college should work and the culture and dynamics, so it's been a great situation. One of the things he told me is that, Josh, you cannot go to every event that you want to or you're invited to, because there is something every single night. And so I have to find that balance, and it's something that currently I and my president and some other executive team members, and as well as some of the deans and faculty, sometimes we share that load in different ways. And so I have to find that balance. In the first year, I'll probably overdo it, going out and being at the events. But then it might be working with my executive team. Also, feedback from the board will be very, very important in this. And them helping me be in the right places in the right time. So the answer actually is no, but the answer is finding a balance to that. And that's something I'll be learning as we go, is what that right balance is. It's interesting is I've been in my role for 4 years. Last Wednesday night, we were at the Nightingale, which is a nursing banquet. It was probably the first time that my boss and I had been at the same after-hours event together because we split those up so frequently. Thank you.
Jeff Harmon, Vice
Hey,
President
Jeff.
of Finance and Administration. As the college embarks on a digital transformation by pursuing the purchase of a new contemporary ERP system, can you speak to your involvement with this type of initiative?
This is a terrifying question. Have any of you been through something similar before? I feel like we all need to take a year off and let you do that, and we'll come back. This requires patience. This requires patience and planning, and it's emphasis on the planning. And so I left Washington right before they fully implemented their system, which led to disappearing payrolls. And they don't know how many students they have, just all kinds of things. We've made smaller changes in Pikes Peak and in Colorado as a system. One of the things that we have done generally well is involving partners in the process from all over campus. And so how will this implementation affect a faculty member and an adjunct faculty member who I am ashamed I forgot to answer that portion of the question earlier. I'm going to come back to that. And just sitting down together and discussing what the challenges are. And so that those people can hear, this is going to impact me this way, I need to go tell my people. Recently, we had a mail merger from a local Pikes Peak to a statewide system. And this one, they got a bit ahead of themselves. We were finding out as it was happening. And lo and behold, mid-December, when everyone's off campus, or most people are off campus, adjuncts didn't have access to email. Nobody anticipated that. So that's a really big piece of it, is just the communication and the collaborative planning process. And I want to go back and answer the adjunct piece. At our campus right now, we did have an adjunct group, and we had an adjunct representative leading that work. And I would meet with that individual, maybe with a partner once a month, to hear how things were going and their concerns. That group actually kind of died out with a lack of interest, and so they have now been invited by Faculty Senate to join their ranks with the full-timers, which works for me. Like I said, I'm committed to listening, and if they find their avenue that works better for them, so be it. Sorry to combine two answers there.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name is Tamara Harmon, and I work for the CSI Foundation. Please describe your experience and knowledge of the working relationship between an educational foundation and the institution it supports?
Great question, and one I think quite a bit about. In my third or fourth year, I started to realize that this might be a path, your third or fourth year of faculty, a path that I was interested in. So I asked our foundation, it's actually our vice president of institutional advancement. And I said, I think that I'm interested in this area, not committed yet, but how can I develop my skills and knowledge so when the time comes that I can contribute? And so I did about a year-long internship, and after that internship, this was on top of teaching, I continued to stay involved everywhere I've been, in any way I can be involved. And one of the big things I've learned, I just talked with our director here, my role as college president is to go foster relationships, build the relationships. I'm the chief storyteller of the college. I need people to understand how great this college is. And we have an interesting dynamic going on, in my opinion, is you have new people moving in at a higher rate than you have. So before you've had everybody knows CSI, and now you have people coming in who don't. And we have to go tell that story in convincing ways that appeal to them. And maybe it's their kid who's in dual credit or whatever it might be. And so that's my role, is to tell the story and get them to the point of pulling out the checkbook. And then the foundation director says, why don't you add a couple zeros at the end? And so that's what I see as my chief role. And I'll be going, and I know that our director is retiring, is going to her right away and saying, hey, help me transition. And number two is going to our new coming person and really building that strategic plan for the future of how we're building our base, how we're getting more people associated with CSI and prepared to invest in us.
Dr. Baker, Vicki Stone touched on part of the area I was going to, but I want to divert to a little different area. I'm a retired member of the community, strong supporter of CSI, both academically and sports-wise, particularly in the medical science side of dental hygiene, all the tech programs. I see how they're benefiting our community with so many people going to work, so many young people. My question is, in the last 50 plus years, we've had very few presidents. What's your thought on this as a stepping stone in 2 years somewhere else? Or
yeah, I'm glad you asked.
We've been very, very fortunate.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked, and I'd rather somebody be really direct on this. This is a destination college for me. I would happily retire. I mean, if you'd put the offer in front of me right now, I would sign with blood on it. We have family 2 hours away. You're close to places I like to visit in Yellowstone, and I have no interest in going anywhere else. If I had the opportunity to be here, I would be here for as long as I thought I was the right president. And I do think there's an important piece of taking a look at, 10, 15 years down the road, am I still the right person to lead this work? I'll be embarrassed if the answer is no, but if the answer is no, then I would find somewhere else to be. I want to share with you one of the findings from Aspen Institute. So I'm an Aspen Fellow this year. They research top community colleges, and they have a presidential prep program. The reason they started this program is they're looking at top colleges. The top colleges really hit their stride at year 10. The president basically has to be there for 10 years before, for whatever reason, that culture is right. Because, the culture doesn't come in on day one. The president says, fix it, it's better, it's right. It's a culture of creating shared governance and getting in rhythm so that by year 10, you're really clicking along, and that's when you hit your performance point. I know that this college is high performing, but I value that research. And for me, that's a key piece. So, simple answer is, I'm going to be here until you tell me to leave.
Hi, I'm Mary Olson from the Career Services. We have a very strong CTE program here at CSI. Give me some examples of how you've promoted CTE and how you've had that balance between CTE and academic in your past.
It's been an interesting transition in my career between the two sides of the house. And I am, you may hear the term terminal degree sometimes when we refer to associates. I'm offended by that term. No degree should be terminal should the student wish to continue. We need 2 + 2s in every area and ways to continue. But looking back at Highline, so I started a program. 4 months in, they said, Josh, in your interview, you mentioned this CTE program, which I did on accident, but it was a wonderful mistake. And they said, we'd like you to start that program. So before I even hit my year mark, I'm out interviewing and surveying the community, testing needs, working with faculty on what curriculum looks like, and getting this started in year 2. From that point, my dean, Alice Madsen, said, I am a one-person show. I have an office of maybe 1.5, and I'd like some help. And could I ask you to help me out with advertising this program and recruiting for this? And can you run this grant for college for working adults, which is evening and weekend human services? And that started me on this path of doing quite a bit of work in skilled trades. Now, when I went to Vincennes, that early college was entirely transfer. So for that 2 years, I would champion the skilled trades and help the students realize, look, you think you want to go to university? You really need to think about this path. But again, really small role there. And back at Bates, this was my life. One of the things I'm most proud of is we had an adult basic ed program. And I walked in the door on day 1, and I didn't know anything about adult basic ed. And I wasn't sure I had a lot of confidence in the mission, I'm embarrassed to say. And they said, well, here's adult basic ed, it's yours. And I said, okay, well, when can I meet with the director? And they said, you are the director as well. And it was a real learning opportunity and experience. A great thing happened in my first year. The GED in Washington changed, and they rolled out a program called High School 21. It was a competency-based degree program, and we no longer had to prepare students for a test. We had to prepare them for the competencies of a high school grad. And so what we started to do is we aligned all of the curriculum so that it was preparing people for a trades program. I should say CTE, not specifically trades, but so as they're working on their GED level equivalency, they are actually preparing to enter into a skilled trades area or other CTE program, which is fantastic. A GED is good, but if you can get them one of the certificates, they have a better shot at a family-sustaining wage. And so just really thrilled with that. And we did all that work on a grant, so we had all of our teachers paid for the overload they were taking on. At Pikes Peak, this has been a major, major focus. We, on the academic side, had a history of saying no to anything innovative in skilled trades. CTE. And that was, my job was to change that. I had a strong background, and so we started to say yes a lot more. So much so that when the vice president of workforce development resigned, they put that all under my area because we were now saying, how do we build bridges from non-credit to credit, and how do we do apprenticeship? And these were all new things for my college. And so this is an area of work that I'm very much committed, and I really enjoy that work.
Robin Bajent, Business Management. It's a CTE program and a 2+2. So thank you for discussing that. What do you feel is online education? What is the mix? What is its role at a college?
So I like our students to be face-to-face. The success rate is higher for most students. However, we have students who don't want to or can't, and as many opportunities as we can provide online, we should. Now, we should be advising appropriately. It doesn't mean we're pushing into online. We should help students think about how do they do with slightly less structure, and will they miss the face-to-face? So I'm more of a champion of face-to-face, but the more we do online, the better, especially when we talk about the breadth of who we serve. You know, we're talking about our rural communities who need that access more. And so I think there's a huge emphasis on quality. You don't just take lecture and move it to online, which we're talking about right now with Corona concerns. We have our faculty working so hard this week on what does it look like, but it's terrifying because I know that quick of a transition would not be a good experience for our students. Right? It takes a lot of effort. We have a staff of 5 that support instructors with that transition. Okay, one more question.
My name is Eric Ness, IT. You called yourself the chief storyteller as one of your chief roles.
You're making me very nervous right now.
Yeah, talking about how that chief storyteller role works with fundraising, especially with the legislature. And secondly, you've lived both in Washington and Colorado, so Seahawks or Broncos?
Ooh. I know that Idaho's in between. I know that sometimes the Seahawks, sometimes Broncos. I was a Seahawks fan in the late 80s and early 90s. I wore a Seahawks coat in Seattle. I got abused verbally because we were so bad. And that John Elway was mostly to blame. I would not have moved to Colorado had we not beat them in the Super Bowl. I try not to bring that up. The next year they won, it's all good. We're through that now. Was there a serious part of that question or just the football? Oh, fundraising. Thank you. Okay. So I think that the key to this is our donors, our potential donors, our community members, they have different interests. And that I have to find out what that interest is. And it doesn't necessarily look like a sales pitch, right? It looks like sitting down and talking. What are you concerned about in your industry? Are you concerned about equitable outcomes? Are you concerned about the ethnicity of your employees? If they are, I have a lot to talk to them about. If not, I need to shift gears, right? And so what do they care about? Do they care about the communities? Do they care about the employees they're going to have in 10 or 15 years? And giving back, what is their core value that I need to speak to? Because it might not be what speaks to me. And it might not be what the person next to them hears. And who does it best, by the way, as students? Right? I can never tell a story as good as the student who walks up on stage. I mean, I still remember it like it was yesterday. At Highline, who said, I was homeless at 17, I was pregnant, and, right, and here's the process I went through, who, by the way, now has a master's degree and works for a publishing company, and just remarkable story. So the students go a long way. Legislators, I need to talk to them. A lot of them have different motivations. And I don't mean this in any way as an insult, but they represent their groups, right? And so they have to think about what initiatives do I carry forward that speaks to my group, and that sometimes is a tricky challenge, and a lot of times is asking them, what's your interest? So, okay, thank you. I believe that at this point I need to do about a 5-minute wrap up. I'm not sure that I have a full 5 minutes, but I have a few thoughts to share. As we've been touring the counties and the city yesterday and today, and as I've been looking at your data as a region, a Magic Valley, and of course specifically Twin Falls, looking at the population trends and what's happening and what happens with race and ethnicity and population overall, people moving in, what does that look like? How are we serving these individuals? I'm really thinking, what does this look like in 10 to 20 years? And the answer is not exactly clear. And I just kind of poked around, and people have different thoughts around what we will look like in 10 to 20 years and what the community will look like in 10 to 20 years. And how do we continue to be, if not the hub, a very, very important hub? Can you have multiple hubs? We'll go with just being a central player. And just an interesting topic. I mean, I think this is going to continue to grow. You will have more industries potentially coming in if we continue to do our job. This will continue to be a popular place to live. You'll have strong draw from people outside. Some of you are commenting that it's actually not really cheap to buy a house here. And it's not unless you've been in Seattle or Portland or Colorado. So I think this continues to have a high draw. And I think that we are not just here as a college to just kind of go along with the experience. And you have done phenomenal work. You have had great leadership. You've done great things. But what we need to do tomorrow to prepare us for 10 years, it might be something that we've never done before. It might be an approach that we've never experienced. One of the things that I consider is equity work. And I haven't heard that mentioned significantly on campus, but we have communities here and pockets of communities here that are not coming to us as much, or they're not persisting in graduating with the same amount. And those people who are served by our centers, how are they supporting our future growth? How do we make sure that those individuals 40 minutes from here have the same opportunities as the people down the street. And I think that's one of the challenges we deal with. How does that impact the way that we deliver instruction and our student services? And I know that you've already done big things here as it relates to HSI with recruitment and advising, and how does that impact academics? I know you had a recent PDW speaker on that, so that's where my mind is. And I like to leave an experience like this with some kind of a vision for what the future holds. And I'm not quite there, but I'm starting to see what opportunities and needs that as a group, right, if we build the right culture and the right way for raising innovation, that we will be prepared. And so that 10, 20 years from now, as we're handing the keys of leadership and instruction off to the next generation, they're also going to say what I'm saying walking in. You all have done a tremendous job. It's phenomenal that you are this prepared for what's happening. And that is what I would like to do, is every day, every year, and we're planning, is that we're looking down the road and we're preparing that in the future CSI will have the same reputation that it's continued to have. I would love to come back and visit you again someday. That would obviously be good news for me. This has been a great college. I've had a great day. I appreciate all of you and your time, and also my tour guides and people who have talked to me throughout the day. So thank you very much.
All right, once again, I want to thank you all for attending the forum. You have a comment card that you can fill out for this session, and we will start the next session at 3 o'clock. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If this is your first forum, we'll get a couple of announcements out of the way. First of all, my name is Chris Bragg. I'm the Associate Dean of Institutional Effectiveness here at the College of Southern Idaho, and I want to make sure to welcome you to the fourth and final of the 4 forums that are being held as we work to select the next president of the College of Southern Idaho. Before we begin once more, we want to make sure that you have that comment card, the appropriate comment card for this session, so please make sure that you do. If you are missing that comment card, please raise your hand. We'll make sure we get one of those to you, and we'll collect those comment cards immediately after this forum. Again, these forums are the next step in a long and thorough process that has been used to identify and select the next president of the College of Southern Idaho. The CSI Board of Trustees contracted with the American Association of Community College Trustees to conduct a national search, and activities have now been underway for more than 5 months. College employees were invited to participate in the development of the search announcement. A 16-member search committee comprised of campus and community members was appointed and charged with reviewing the applications and identifying a group of finalists to forward to the Board of Trustees for further consideration as finalists. At these forums, you've had the opportunity to meet each one of the finalists, and once again, you'll have the opportunity to provide your own written comments, which will be reviewed by the CSI Board as they consider each finalist's qualifications and determine who will best lead the college forward. We want to thank you once again for participating in this process. Again, the format, the candidate will come out, will have the opportunity to make an opening statement. After that opening statement, we will take questions again from the audience. Once again, please make sure you introduce yourself and your connection with the college, whether you are a community member, student, faculty, staff, administration, etc. And again, please make sure that you get the attention of either Ginger or Shelley so they can get you a microphone so that we can hear that question that you're asking. With about 10 minutes left in our 50-minute forum, I will let the candidate know that there's an opportunity for one final question, and then he will have the chance to make a closing statement. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our candidate for this forum, Dr. Martin Reimer. Dr. Reimer currently serves as the provost at Ellsworth Community College in Iowa Falls, Iowa. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Martin Reimer.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. There you go. Okay. I'm a teacher by training, so when I say good afternoon, I like a little feedback. So good afternoon. Thank you again for coming. I know it's been a long week, even though it's just Tuesday, and if you haven't been out to the polls yet, I think you still have until 8 o'clock to do that. So I do appreciate you coming to take the time to talk with me. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself, my personal and professional background, and really how that fits in and aligns with the president's position here at CSI. I grew up on what I call a 4-H farm. It was a little farm in rural Iowa. My father was a dairy veterinarian, and my mother was a registered nurse. I had a great, childhood, one of those small schools where if you were good at something or not, you were out for sports, you were out for theater, you were out for band. So I got to participate in a lot of different things. When it came to time to go to college, I wanted to see a bit of the world. And so I went to Central College in Pella, Iowa, that had at the time about 10 campuses around the world. And so I had the opportunity to do my junior year abroad in Spain, and that really opened my eyes to the world out there and how that plays an effect on me. I really learned not just about the world, but about myself and my background and my upbringing, and really how fortunate I was to grow up in the environment that I did. I learned over there that not everybody had the same opportunities that I did, and it just wanted me to have more. I couldn't make up my mind on what I wanted to major in, so they gave me a general studies degree after 4 years and said it's time to move on. But my focus was in theater, Spanish, and social sciences. I wanted to see a little bit more of the world, so I added education to that, and I became an elementary teacher down in Puebla, Mexico. Great experience for a first-time teacher. I had 2 groups of students, and I had a partner, and so I would teach one group in English in the morning, and she taught the other group Spanish in Spanish, and then we switched in the afternoon. And that really gave me an appreciation for interdisciplinary shared development of curriculum. So whatever she was developing in history, then we would reinforce that in the English writing class. And so that really has been the basis for my, I guess, curriculum development, is that real interactive, aligned approach to learning. When I left Puebla, Mexico, I wanted to explore different business and industry. I still wanted to have that international focus. So I went to get my master's in business administration from Thunderbird School of International Business in Arizona. I had a great experience there, studied Chinese as my language. I had the opportunity to go over to Beijing to work in the commercial services of the U.S. Embassy as a volunteer intern. While I was there, I didn't expect it, but I met my future wife. She was originally from South Korea, but she was studying Chinese language and culture there to get her bachelor's. People ask, what languages do you speak? And I said, Spanish, pretty proficient. I can get by. And then Chinese, it was good enough to woo my wife. So she didn't speak English at the time. I didn't speak Korean, so Chinese was Mandarin was our common language. But even though she was from the other side of the world, we both had the same really unique experiences growing up. She was from a farm family, little town in South Korea, so had a lot of the same values, the same outlook, and she wanted to get out and explore the world as well. So once we got married, we came back to the United States. I went to work for a French and oil and gas company whose headquarters were based out of Houston, Texas. And that is really an exciting industry, a lot of ups and downs, but all the projects were based outside of the country, so I would be talking to people on 4 different continents during the day. Had a lot of fun with that. But like I said, that industry can go up and down just like we saw yesterday. And so I wanted to transition to something a little bit more stable, and so went into institutional banking with JP Morgan Chase. It's an exciting thing. We dealt with collateral debt obligations, if you're familiar with that. But our clients were based primarily in New York, London, and Tokyo. So with my background, I had the opportunity to go with a team and open up the Tokyo office. Great experience. Really loved working in that industry as well. But the one thing that I came to realize is what I was really passionate about, what really got me excited in these different industries, is employee development. So even though they took the teacher out of the classroom, they couldn't take the teacher out of me. And so I really, sat down. About that time, my wife and I were starting a family, and then you start thinking, okay, what do I really want my long-term aspirations to be? And so I wanted to get back into education. And When I started to examine, did I want to get back into K-12, the university system, from a real personal philosophy, the community college system is the one that spoke to me. In my travels around the world, and even within the United States, access to education is not a given for a lot of people. Quality education, it's not equitable across the board. And so that's what really, I guess, spurs me in my drive and the community college mission of open access, of really changing people's lives through learning, really excited me. So I went back and got my PhD. I did it through an online university because at the time I was actually still in Japan, so that was the only option. I really liked doing it that way because I got really good at writing because that's what all the communication was through. Once I started that journey, I started looking at getting back into rural middle America. My wife and I wanted to raise our kids back up somewhere in rural America, and so had the opportunity then to work at Western Iowa Tech Community College in Sioux City, Iowa. And that was a great experience. My background, I started out as the dean of the corporate college, so I oversaw economic development, workforce training, all the ABE, ESL, GED programs, and that was a really great experience. And what I learned working in the business world, I had a great understanding, I think, of what our business is really looking for in individuals. They're looking for that technical skills that they get when they're at college. But even equally as important, they're looking for individuals that are able to work in teams, have that critical thinking, problem solving. Those things, they call them soft skills, essential skills, 21st century skills. Those are the things that people value in the workforce. And that's what really excites me about this CSI position. You know, when I look at the mission of CSI, everybody talks about wanting to provide quality education. Everybody talks about wanting to provide workforce training and economic development. But not all of them have that social and cultural aspect that CSI does, where you look at the student as a whole and how they can be productive members within the communities that they serve. And that's what really excites me when I look at education. Is, are we educating the whole individual? And are they able to go out and lead productive lives, both at work and at home? So, at Western Iowa Tech, then, I began to oversee a lot of other areas, student support, enrollment, financial aid, oversaw the grants and foundation office, and then had the opportunity to become the provost at Ellsworth Community College. Ellsworth is a rural college. It's part of the Iowa Valley Community College District. We have a sister college called Marshalltown Community College. I serve as the provost, CEO, CAO. When you're in a small college, you have a lot of hats. And that's been a really great experience. And that's where we talked about being able to help develop the different types of learning approaches for our learners that I've done with the workforce training, economic development side, and I've also worked with the credit side in developing programs, and I've also worked with the support services or student services that help with persistence and completion. So when I look at the fit and really what CSI and the journey that they're going on, I think there's a lot of things in my background that will help. I know you've just reached that threshold of becoming a Hispanic serving population. When I was at Western Iowa Tech, we had a service area where 22% of the population was Hispanic, so I have a lot of experience working with those areas. I think as a candidate, I bring a lot of both breadth and depth that I've seen virtually all oversight over all areas within a college. And then I think the other thing is the match with the rural background. Iowa and Idaho are very similar. When I started getting out of Iowa and telling people where I'm from, you know, the first response I get, oh, potatoes. And I say, you know, number one, no, that's Idaho. And number two, there's more to Idaho than just potatoes. Just like there's more than hogs and corn in Iowa. So that's a little bit about me personally and professionally. I'd really love to know what's on your mind and have a conversation.
Hi, my name is Scott Lindquist. I'm the coordinator of our Student Disability Services Office, and my question is the following. Currently, about half of CSI's enrollment is dual credit early college students. What experience do you have with working with this population, and what is your view of these programs overall?
The first part, I think I have a lot of experience at Western Iowa Tech. I oversaw, we called it College Now, you know, dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment. At Ellsworth, I have some partnerships around that as well. Specifically at Sioux City, what we found was really beneficial working with our high schools. You talked about what's my view on it. It's good if it's meaningful. You see, Iowa's been doing the concurrent or dual enrollment for a long time now. So we're at a fairly mature stage in the development of this. And in the beginning, like, you know, I see at a lot of institutions where it just grows very rapidly. I think here in the last 3 or 4 years, it's doubled in size. What we've done in working with schools is making sure that it's meaningful. And what I mean by meaningful is, does it serve two primary functions for the high school students? One, can they do career exploration? This is a great time to be testing out careers. How many of us went to school, changed our majors? How many of our current students are unsure? It's great if they're able to do that at a much younger age. So to see if they like something or not. And so we created career pathways with the schools where they could take 12 to 18 credits when they're in high school, really to explore a different pathway and get a head start with that savings. And then that's the other piece when I talk about meaningful. Are they able to take that and go on and complete a degree somewhere? When I came to Ellsworth, one of the most popular classes, I found it was only accepted at 3 schools. Which, you know, the majority of our students did not attend after they left high school or left Ellsworth. So we transitioned and made sure that the classes that we're offering are going to be transferable either into the programs that we have currently or into programs at other schools. The other thing we're doing around dual enrollment is partnering with our high schools, where 2 of them have agreed. We're hiring a position that's going to be paid for by the 2 high schools and the college. And the position is a career counselor, an advisor, and they're positioned out in the high schools. And aside from giving advising and career advice, they teach our career exploration and college readiness classes in those environments. So those are some of the things that I guess I've had experience with the dual enrollment. And again, if it's meaningful, and then the last piece, I guess, it has to be sustainable. You know, are you getting enough funding at the state level to recoup what you're actually putting out? And I know that's an issue here in Idaho with the level right now.
My name is Cheryl Veal. I'm the Executive Director for the Jerome Chamber of Commerce. And with your experience in industry as well as with higher ed, I'm really curious to know how you bridge that partnership with the industry, but one of the unique dynamics here is with it being a community college, we've got several of the industries within the Magic Valley where you get your students started on a pathway, then they have to go off to finish their education. What kind of stuff do you have in plan to make sure that they can come back for that economic growth so they can return to the Magic Valley, to these industries, to the jobs that are here? I'll give you an example. I was talking with somebody, with one of my members, and with St. Luke's, and they have an entire city of jobs within the St. Luke's. People think medical, they think nurses and doctors, they don't realize the breadth of everything that that entails. So what are your plans as far as making sure that we can get those people to come back?
That's a great question. I'm not going to come in here with a presupposed solution because they're all unique to those individual communities and what they have to offer and what the leadership in those areas are looking for. I can tell you what I've done in the past that's worked, and we can explore that in the future. My wife and I, we came out here early, and so we had a chance to drive to all of the remote locations that CSI has, and so we went through Jerome, and it's very similar to a town that we had when I was working at Western Iowa Tech. So Sioux City is comparable to Twin Falls, a little bit bigger, but we had a big rural area that we served too. Lamar's about 10,000, population of 10,000. The biggest industry there is Wells Blue Bunny, probably the number 2 ice cream maker in America. And so the majority of the town and the surrounding towns were employed with this company and then the auxiliary companies that supported that. Of course, they had a shortage of electrical mechanical workers. Very difficult to, they were poaching from each other. And so we were able to sit down with the business leaders, with the economic developers, with the leaders from the community, and we just said, okay, we need to start growing the pie. We can't just keep redistributing it where it is. And so we were able to develop a 3-pronged approach where we looked at addressing their short-term needs and their long-term needs. In the short term, we looked at their employees that they had that were hardworking, showed that they could work in teams, and wanted to grow. And so that was the requirement for them to get into then our electrical mechanical program. We set that up. We created the training with the employees at these businesses so that it was stylized to their entry-level workers. And that was the first step, is training their current workforce. Then the second step was attracting others. And so we then took this non-credit program, aligned it with credit, so we created another credit program with that, and so then we had open enrollment where people could come in there. And then the third prong was working with the high school, where we created that electrical mechanical pathway where students could begin taking classes in high school. They could get paid internships or part-time jobs at the same time, and after they graduated from high school, if they wanted to stay employed, it was contingent that they stayed working at that company. We did that with the HVAC apprenticeship program, very similar. The businesses were stealing from each other. We created an apprenticeship program where we grew the pie. At Ellsworth, I think a great example is when you talk about rural America, it's not just the job there, but it's what is that life experience and how do you market that? And the term that's used commonly is placemaking. And so working with economic developers, chambers, that how do you attract families either that grew up there, went away, came back like I did, or attracting them from the outside, not just with a job, but with that quality of life. You know, if people are looking for that safe environment where, you know, the kids can play outside, you know, those things are things we can sell. Each community has its own unique imprint, and so you have to work with them on developing what is missing from that quality of life standpoint that they need to develop within their communities. So those are some of the things that I have done. There's really no magic formula to it other than getting people together, listening, really taking the time to get the data and have those crucial conversations. Because, you know, everybody wants a microbrewery, everybody wants this and that, but what is really unique that you can showcase within your community? Just like what is really unique that you can showcase within your college?
Hi there. My name is Scott Farkas. I'm the chair of Visual and Performing Arts here. So CSI serves a lot of community roles. Among them, our arts education and outreach through music, dance, theater sort of constitute a cultural hub for the region. I think I heard it in your early bio what the arts maybe mean to you personally, but I was hoping you could talk for a few minutes about the value you might see in our community cultural mission and what you might do to support ongoing strength in the arts at CSI.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the arts. You know, I was really, you know, like to perform in my early days, but if anybody knows of the play or the movie Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I was more the Michael Caine character, where my appreciation was much larger than my ability. And so luckily I found my other passion was education, learning. But yeah, it's a big thing for me. At Ellsworth Community College, that community has a long tradition in the arts, and so we have an Orpheum Theater that's been restored. There's community theater there as well. My wife and I are both on, it's called the Pat Clark Art Collection, which is an art collection that is housed at Ellsworth Community College, and then we raise funds for that to maintain the art and then also bring in visiting artists in different mediums. I'm looking at bringing fine arts back to Ellsworth. Really, again, what is the niche that we can fill? You know, people don't go to the middle of Iowa to, you know, go to Broadway. But what I've learned in my experience, where I think we have a really good fit, is on the technical fine arts side, and so we're exploring, you know, those different things around video production, audio engineering. So I was really excited when, you know, I saw this facility here and some of the programming that they're able to capture here. I'd be a big supporter of that as we go on. And I'd really look, how do we get our students interested in that as well? That's been a real big thing of mine throughout my career, is that students, if you have them engaged outside of the classroom, they're going to do better in the classroom. I mean, that's what the research shows. One of the things I did when I came to Ellsworth is we didn't have a full-time student engagement director. That was the first thing we did. That's one of our big goals in our strategic plan, is get students involved and engaged in some way, shape, or form on the campus. At Ellsworth, you know, we have the clubs and sports are those primary drivers for student engagement.
Ancina Durham, CSI Library. What, in your view, are the 3 most important responsibilities of the president?
I think, number one, I think the most responsibilities, they may shift a little bit depending on the circumstances, but I think there are a few things that remain primary. The underlying philosophy I have is that a president is a servant leader. And so the main responsibility of the president is, how do you make people successful in achieving the mission, vision, values of the college. Whether that's students, employees, external stakeholders in the community and businesses. How do you look for those win-win situations? And like I always tell my faculty and staff, I view myself as a teacher. My classroom is the campus. My classroom is the community. And my main goal is to get people together to collaborate on what's the best way forward into achieving our mission. So that's number one. Number two, he needs to be the biggest advocate of the college. Need to be out in the public, involved in different service organizations, different councils. They're telling them what Ellsworth Community College is to that community and how can we help the community grow. Also the biggest advocate on the campus for students. I'm very passionate about student success. At Ellsworth right now, the last iPads came out, 74% of our students either graduate or transfer to another university. I worry about that 26%. If we're bringing students in, we better making sure that we're creating an atmosphere and a learning environment that's going to give them every opportunity to be successful. In the end, it's the individual's choice, but we can create that environment to make sure that we're focusing on student success. So it's advocacy inside and out. And then that third piece, I think when I think about that, it's really how do we ensure that what we're doing is sustainable? So making sure that we're getting the funding that's required, whether through state appropriations, through grants, whether that's through fundraising and scholarships. We've been very fortunate, I think, at Ellsworth. In some ways, we're unfortunate in Iowa because of our funding structure. Over half of our revenue comes from tuition and fees. So I think we're 7th highest in the United States right now in that. But I'm really proud that in Iowa, we're the 4th lowest with graduation debt. And that's because we've done such probably an aggressive take on going out and getting endowed scholarships and really looking at different ways to fund our students, because well over half of our students are Pell eligible and need that academic support. So those are the things I think about, is being that servant leader, that advocacy, and then making sure that we're on a sustainable pathway.
I'm Vicki Stone, and I'm a member of the CSI Booster Club. And here at CSI, we have an incredible, exciting, amazing athletic director and staff that has created a beautiful, I guess it's not beautiful, strong program. Do you feel obligated to attend the games?
To me, attending the games isn't an obligation. I really enjoy going to all activities. Like I said earlier in my background, I had to be out for everything. I think I joked earlier that they measured my jump shot with how many sheets of paper they could shove under my shoe. But I was out there on the floor each and every night. And so to me, it's really family time. At Ellsworth, sports is really a big driving factor, and for me, that's really a great time to get to talk with people in the community, students, but then I also bring my family. I have 2 girls, and so for me, that's a great experience as far as being at those events when I can. Being, the provost overseeing the entire campus, I can't make it to everything, but I do try and make it to all things. My wife and I drove out here. We almost stopped in Council Bluffs to watch the national wrestling nationals. Ellsworth got 5th here this weekend, if anybody was wondering. But no, my family and I, we love athletics. We love other extracurricular activities, and so that's just that's one of the benefits, I think, of this position.
I'm Jody Hawkins. I teach in the biology department here on campus. I'm curious of pretty much 3 things: the catalyst for change in your life to come to Twin Falls, why CSI, and why Twin Falls.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question. I think because just the fit with what CSI is looking for and the journey they're going on, and the same thing for me, both personally and professionally. When I look at what CSI has been able to do with advancing their developmental education, with advancing their persistence and completion, they've made a lot of great strides in the recent years. That's been a real passion and focus of mine, and I would love to help contribute with that journey to keep improving in those areas. When I look at, again, becoming a Hispanic serving institution, I think one of the things I bring is my wealth of experience in working with the different Hispanic populations. When people talk about the Hispanic populations, sometimes they talk about it as one homogeneous group, and it's not. So you're dealing with a lot of different demographics there, just like with any different demographics. Some are coming from families that nobody's gone to school before. Others are coming from highly educated families. Some are first generation, some are second, third. Some Spanish is the first language. Some it's not their primary language. So how do you get in and involve those different groups and bring them here? And that's one of the things that really excites me. Not just with the Hispanic population, but with all of those social and economically disadvantaged groups. It's always been a passion of mine, and I see, CSI, there's a lot of room to grow in that journey. When I look at it from a personal level, right now I'm at, it's a destination school. It's small, but before that I was at a school much more like CSI in Sioux City, and I like parts of each, and I see parts of both of those all here at CSI. From a personal standpoint, Iowa and Idaho, very similar as far as family values. That's very important to me. I like the size of Twin Falls, where you do have a sizable population, but then you're also serving a much bigger rural area, and that again has a lot of attractiveness to me, because that's something that in my career I've had a lot of experience balancing that urban and rural approach to education. So when you look at these different things as far as where CSI is going on its journey and where I'm going on my journey professionally and personally, it's really aligned quite well.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Abu Zaid. I am a new instructor here. I just recently moved from Northern California, from the communication department, soft skills, teach those. So my question has to do with sustainability. What is your background in implementing sustainability practices on college campuses, and would you make that a priority here at CSI?
Yeah, that's a big word. It means a lot of different things, and so I guess I will take it from several different areas. I'll take it first from, I guess, the eco view, the environmental view. In Ellsworth, the town recycling center or bins or whatever, they were looking to do away with that. We approached the city and said that we'd like to relocate that for the city and the county on our campus. And then we had different organizations within the student organizations within the campus then kind of maintain that and make sure that that as a community, not just as a college, we're still recycling. It's a small thing, but wherever we have a trash can, we bought recycling receptacles as well. So we do some of those things. I think one of the real important things we do is through our conservation technology program, where our faculty and students really get out in the community, work with the area county conservation organizations. Water quality is really a big thing in Iowa with all our farmland, and so giving our students those abilities then to get out and work in corporate environments or out in the business world where you can see that environmental sustainability is a major piece to financial stability. Sustainability. One of the things I really like about this position, getting back to your question, is, I know Southern or Idaho Power has the lofty goal of being 100% clean energy by 2045. Really support that. At Western Iowa Tech, helped develop the wind power program. We do a lot of safety training for the tower erection industry, and so that type of renewable energy is really something that attracts me. The other piece of that is program sustainability within the college. That's a big focus that we talk about with faculty and staff, is how do we ensure that our programs that we're offering are relevant to both the student and to the communities that we serve. Being a successful student isn't just graduating, isn't just transferring to another school. It's graduating and successfully transitioning into a career. It's transitioning to another college and being successful at that college. So our programs need to be really focused on having that student being able not to just succeed at the college, but throughout their lives, to giving them those skills where they're going to become lifelong learners. And then third, financial stability. And I've had a lot of, experience with that, with banking background, and then overseeing a college campus as well. So there's a lot built into that one word. It's so important that that's one of our strategic plan items at the college. Okay. Make it a good one.
Jacob Powell, Assistant Athletic Director. What role would athletics play under your administration? And in addition to that, what role would it play in generating on-campus enrollment?
Mm-hmm. I think I've talked a little bit about it before, but students need to be engaged as the whole individual. And I talked about students need to be able to be successful in the classroom with their technical learning, but then they also need problem solving, teamwork, and critical thinking skills. Athletics plays a tremendous role in that. When you run student athletic programs correctly, students complete, students transfer on, they're going to be successful. And so whether it's athletics, club activities, co-curricular, extracurricular, I'm very, very passionate that students need to be engaged in the community. So at Ellsworth, I think we have around usually between 260 to 280 student athletes. We have 7 sanctioned sports, and while I've been there, we just added sports shooting a few years ago. That's a very big thing in Iowa, both for men and women. And so we've had, again, a long history of sports. I think the first sports team was in the late 1800s at Ellsworth. So again, I think that plays a real interesting part. And for us at Ellsworth, you know, athletes, they're residents in the dorms. And so we need to make sure that we're providing them with support inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So we've done a lot in the last few years to make sure that not just the student athletes, but all students have that support. And so we've added a lot to our student academic support services. We've done a lot in student engagement. We've done a lot in getting our coaches and faculty together to come up with really creative solutions that help with persistence. Because, you know, my directive to faculty and coaches is I want the students to be successful in both the classroom and on the field. Because if it's just one or the other, it's not a balanced approach. Some of the things that we've done at Ellsworth to support athletics is we compete along with the schools in Iowa and Kansas in a football conference. And of the 11 schools, we were the only one that did not have a turf field. And so we really worked on finding a solution for that. So we played at the local high school. A lot of the junior colleges play at the high school. And so we led efforts for fundraising for that, where we got money from the high school, from our trustees, and through private donations to make that happen. And that's really put us on a level playing field with a lot of the other schools as far as being able to recruit and retain talent. It wasn't a popular idea at first with some of our folks, but that's where it's the job of the president or the provost to get people together and really have them understand why it's important. And for us, the two biggest things was it was a safety issue for the student athlete, because a field that's used by the junior high, JV, high school, college, football team, plus the soccer teams, it doesn't last very long after one rain. So safety was a huge issue. We did the research. The turf option provided a safer playing field for our athletes. And then the second thing was it was an enrollment issue. So those are some of the things worked on. With that, I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. You know, it wasn't asked, but I think another reason why I think I would be a good fit here at CSI is my fundraising activities. I talked about the turf field. When I started, it was the year before Ellsworth celebrated its 125th anniversary. And so there was a drive with the foundation to create 125 endowed scholarships and raise $1.25 million. And so my job with that was to work with the executive director and make sure that she was able to sit down and talk with individuals in the community that, you know, as the leader, I had those relationships in the service organizations with the area business leaders, those decision makers. And so really supported that effort, and so that was successful. And then the most recent one is getting a $32 million bond referendum passed for our district. I think, you know, a little over half is coming to Ellsworth, but that was really important because when you've been around that long and have 17 separate buildings, you have a lot of infrastructure issues that you had to deal with. And so they did a bond referendum 12 years ago, and in Hardin County, where Ellsworth is located, it didn't pass. As a district, it passed, but in Hardin County, it didn't. This time around, because we took the time to get out and show businesses and the community why we were valuable, why we were partners. It wasn't us just going out and asking them for a handout. They had seen that not just myself, but faculty and staff and students are involved in the community. That's one of our major learning objectives for our outcomes for our students is that civic engagement. And so because we had that, the support of the community in Hardin County improved by over 10 points. And it was Hardin County that helped carry that bond referendum. And that's going to help support the safety of our campus. Our dorms are 50 years old, and so this is going to upgrade those. One of the things when I came on campus is, I really like giving students a voice. That first year, food service was really one that they wanted to focus on. We had the same food service provider for 42 years. And so we sat down with them and looked at what did they want in the next food service provider. We had their representation as we went out and started to evaluate and interview the different food service providers. We did that. We then, the students wanted more bandwidth. They were having trouble logging on to their learning platform. So we increased that to, again, I'm not a techie, but from 50 to 1,000 Mbps or whatever for our broadband. And then, this last year always been a concern of mine is the condition of our dorms. And in fact, this last fall, the third day of classes, we had a fire in one of our dorms. Not something you want to have happen, especially on the third day. So we had 150 men that were homeless for a month. And as you see a bad situation, but then you also see how a community comes together when they're unified. And so we were able to get a lot of our students put up in hotels, but we didn't have enough hotels for all the students. So other students said, okay, we'll triple, quadruple up. And then we had people from the community open their homes to these students. The community donated, I think, almost $30,000 to the students just directly to help them replace the things that they lost in this fire. And so I'm just telling you this story because I want you to know that, if I have the honor of being the next president here at CSI, that's the type of relationships that you need to build when you're talking about creating a learning environment that's going to benefit the students and the communities it serves. I think we were able to get that bond passed because of our involvement in the community, because of that response. And that's what I'd be looking to bring to CSI as the next president. With that, I thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon. Take care.
All right, that concludes the forums. Please make sure you get your comment cards turned in on your way out. And thank you again so much for participating in this very important process. Have a great afternoon.